Hi, everyone. Welcome to another session of Benefits Brain Food. Today, we spoke to Keith Abrahams, who is a global keynote speaker and a best-selling author. Keith is an absolute tornado of fun. We had a great hoot recording with him. We covered so many different topics around engagement, how to innovate, how to be credible, and how authenticity is the new most important thing in a virtual world. Keith also gave us a tour of his setup. It really can't be missed. He does virtual presentations all day, every day for a living. So, if you want to look at how to create a proper setup, here is the session to go through.
Yeah, I actually first came across Keith. He's got a number of books out, but the one that I came across first was It Starts With Passion. Highly recommend it for anyone listening. It's a book that essentially goes into the quest to achieving greater success with kind of clarity, purpose, and passion. And it's about doing what you love and loving what you do, essentially. And a really interesting anecdote which came out of, do you know what? There's so many anecdotes that came out of this recording. Keith is just full of so many stories. I just wanted to build a campfire, sit around and listen, and just let Keith kind of take us on a bit of a journey in terms of what he's seen over the years. But one of the concepts which I found really interesting was this concept of nemawashi, which he speaks about in some of his books as well. And it's this concept of building a kind of consensus building strategy, essentially, that involves speaking to individuals in groups and organizations to help influence change and make decisions. Really, really fascinating. So many stories to cover. And yeah, this is definitely one of the funnest episodes we've had.
Yeah, I've worked with Keith a few times in the past and I know him really well. So he ribs me a couple of times in this session, which I'm sure listeners will appreciate. He also gives us an offer at the end of the episode. So please keep listening for viewers and listeners to get some of his content. So yeah, enjoy the session and catch up next time. So great to see you, Keith. Thanks for coming on the show. The best way for us to start, I think, would just be for you to give a bit of an intro to yourself and a bit of a potted history of your background and what you've been doing.
Okay, yeah, sure, no worries at all. Great for the opportunity to be here today with you, Jack, and Matthew. You know, for the last 25 years, I've been a professional speaker. Travelled the world, spoken to in 33 different countries to more than 1.6 million people. And it's written 5 best-selling books published in 12 different languages. I'm big in Russia. Sold 25,000 books in a day in Russia.
Wow.
I think they're using it for firewood, but that's a different story. One of the things that, that I've been fortunate enough to do is to, have this opportunity to work with all these amazing corporate clients all around the world. Everybody from, of course, Mercer and Swiss Re, all the way through to all the major banks in Australia, all the major car companies, Toyota, Lexus, Jaguar Land Rover, Maserati, one of my favourite. Just hopefully they're going to pay me in car wheels very shortly. And so it's been this great journey. And COVID has been a really interesting time for everybody, as you guys can really appreciate. So about 36 weeks ago, when COVID really started to have an impact on my business. So just to put things into perspective, for 25 years I've spoken at 100 conferences a year, every year. And I'm normally booked about 12 months in advance. And so when COVID first hit, 70 of my conferences vanished in about 10 days. And I sat down and I went, okay, what are we going to do here? And so I cleaned out, this is my studio. This is not a virtual background. It's got a big banner here. I cleaned out a spare bedroom, created a 3-camera studio, and I have now delivered 73 virtual presentations, masterclasses in the last 33 weeks to 25,500 people, 26 different countries. And so, I don't know if I'm ever going to leave this room the way I'm going. So it's been amazing how people are resilient to change and adjust. So that's a bit of a quick thumbnail. Happy to explore any part of that you want to, Jack and Matthew, and dig a little deeper.
Thanks, Keith. We definitely will, and it'd be great later on at some point for you to give us a bit of a studio tour, because that would be.
Oh, my pleasure, my friend.
I know you'd love that too. And so a quick one for me to start really as well is you obviously travelled a lot. You know, I know you're based in Australia, but I've met you, you know, London several times. How have you found the adjustment to not travelling, like from
good question. Yeah, that, you know, people said, "Are you missing not being in in front of an audience?" And the short answer is no, I'm not. And it's not because I don't like people. It's the piece here is that this year I will clock up. So I mentioned before, I normally speak at 100 events a year. This year I'll clock up 130 events, 100 of them from the four walls here without leaving the property. And so I'm not so much missing the travel, and I love to travel. You know, Jack, you've heard me say I think people fit into two categories. You know, you're either a tourist or an explorer when you travel. I never want to be a tourist. I always want to be an explorer. I love, a little bit like you guys, you know, when I travel, I like to go and eat with the locals, drink with the locals, drink, you know, shop with the locals, shop. I never want to follow anybody with a flag and be on a bus and with a name tag on. I don't want to do that. And so I'm missing not being able to jump on a plane and go to some of my favourite places in the world, London, the US, New Zealand. I'm missing those. But I've got an enormous amount of time on my hands now to create, to think, to do some things that I've been putting off for a little while personally. So it's been cool.
So obviously in this virtual world now, where obviously you've had to adapt and you've got the setup and I would imagine, like, do you feel as though like the kind of attitude to the audience, or you kind of get the same kind of levels of engagement when you're having these kind of speaker sessions? What does the participation look like, versus having a kind of live audience like you used to?
Yeah, you know what? So I don't hear too many people laughing at my jokes unless they're unmuted and we're in a small group. Well, then I probably don't hear them anyway. Maybe they're just not that funny.
Yeah, nothing to do with mute, Keith.
Oh, the penny's dropped. I'm not funny. Oh, jeez. So what? I've missed that. But what's been really interesting, Matthew, and you could not have told me this, and I would not have believed you, but I'm getting more interaction in my presentations virtually than I would in person. And I'm pretty interactive, as Jack will attest to. I'm pretty interactive, and I get people, engaged and enthused and energized, and not hyped up or anything like that, but really engaged. But what I'm finding now is, and here's the secret, all the introverts have an opportunity to say something anonymously. And so the chat box goes off. If I've got 30 or 40 people on a call, and it's not, I did something in North America 2 weeks ago now, and there was 2,000 people online. And the chat box was like a ticker tape. It was just dum 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 dum. And I get that same type of response even now when there's 30 or 40 people. But there is a secret, and what I've seen from colleagues of mine and what I've learnt myself, you've got to understand, when you do 70 plus, you work out what works and what doesn't work. And the one thing I can tell you that works is the chat box, but you have to be very deliberate and very conscious of how you engage and get that audience engaged. To say, I'm going to ask you to type something in the chat box in a moment, and it could be as simple as just type Y if this concept makes sense to you. Oh, thanks, Mary. Thanks, John. Yeah, and what? Excellent. Thank you. And it's just being a lot more prepared. It's being a lot more deliberate, and it's being a lot more direct.
Love that. And it's a really good point around the kind of introvert. So weirdly, when we go through these kind of personality kind of profilers, I'm the anomaly that kind of comes out half red and half blue, which are the two completely opposing dynamics. But I've still got that kind of introvert side, and sometimes I'm up for the conversation, sometimes I'm not. And like when it's in that Zoom environment, I've been in that situation where I'm like, I can just type a quick question in the chat box, and it's so much easier, and I can just squirrel away. But it's true, and I'm wondering as well, where kind of companies, for example, let's say they're doing a survey, right, or an all hands meeting, or I don't know, quarterly business review.
Yeah.
They're only really ever getting part of the picture, because it's the same as when when Jack runs survey groups.
Yes.
For doing scheme design, but we're getting people in a room, we're saying, hey, what do you like? What don't you like? What do you need, or whatever, right? Jack, obviously, I know they're not the questions you asked, but it's slightly more sophisticated than that, funny enough.
I don't think so, but anyway, let's go on.
Yeah.
What's your favourite colour?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was the commute?
Yeah.
But one of the things that, like, when I asked Jack some advice when I was kind of doing some focus groups, one of the things that Jack told me was, like, make sure you've kind of got a kind of good mix where you don't just have one dominant personality in the room, so that you do get input from kind of all people. And I guess where we've kind of got this Zoom world, it removes those dominant personalities, doesn't it? And it kind of gives everyone the voice now for the business to listen to.
Well, and here's the real piece around it is you're getting a more accurate assessment around how people, where they are, whether they're engaged, whether they're not engaged, purely and simply. And someone asked me the other day, what are you noticing, and what are you picking up, seeing you've done so many events, and I can see where people are at. I know this sounds a bit weird, but I can see through the language they use in the chat box where people are at. And that's not a superpower or anything like that. You just see the language they use. I did something with some financial planners, and they've been really struck hard here in Australia because they've gone through a whole lot of education standards. Before that was a Royal Commission, before that was a GFC. So they've been belted from daylight to dark. And so you can just see people going, geez, that guy sounds like he's struggling a bit, just from how they're responding to just a simple question in the chat box. So you're right, Matt. One of the things now is that people are so much more, they're happy to share that because, you know what, you can't see me. And so I'm happy to put that little, that little comment in the chat box. And by the way, in a couple of minutes, depending on how many people on the call, in a couple of minutes, that comment will be gone. It'll be gone it'll be off the screen. So yeah, but it feels like people are participating.
That's a definite win, isn't it, of the virtual world, because there's no chat box in real life. There's no opportunity for everyone to say something at the same time and to be heard. Because, as Matt said, that so many times where there's a meeting where you just can't talk. But on the other side,
sorry, Jack, I was going to say, you can't get a word in because you go, geez, there's so many dominant personalities here. I don't want to look like a dick, and so I don't want to seem like the fool or something like that. But I can now participate. Now, on that side of the coin, here's the other side of the coin. The challenge, of course, is getting people to collaborate. Because what happens is everybody waits for someone to finish. Not that I did that with you, Jack. No. But everybody waits for someone to finish. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, thanks, Jack. Good, that's excellent. Next. But everybody, when you see around a boardroom table and you're brainstorming an idea for a product or to solve a problem or something like that, what often happens is, Jack, you'll say something, and then Matt, you'll jump in, and then I'll say, yeah, but what else we could do is we could do this. The Japanese have a saying for that. It's called namawashi, and namawashi is that somebody will come up with an idea, and somebody will add to that idea, and somebody else will add to that idea, and somebody else will add to that idea, and all of a sudden, two things happen. It becomes a better idea, and the second becomes our idea, not my idea. And so that's the piece that's probably missing in a virtual world.
I remember you telling me a story, Keith, before about a company you worked with that came up with thousands of ideas in a year.
Yes, Toyota.
Oh, Toyota.
So one of my clients for the last 18 years now in a row has been Toyota, and travelled the world with them, had a great time with them. Had a chance early on in my relationship with them to go to Japan. On a study tour. I took a group of dealers on a study tour, and we went and toured the factory in Nagoya. And so it if you've been to any type of manufacturing plant, you know it's this happens and then it moves to that and then it goes to that. And then, so in Toyota in Nagoya, which they call Toyota City, you walk on an overhead bridge because there's a whole stack of unmanned vehicles moving around the factory, and so you're observing this. And so I saw this Toyota Land Cruiser. If you picture this, here's this white Toyota Land Cruiser. It's got just what, there's nothing on it, and ever so slowly it creeps along the production line, and at each workstation there's about 6 to 8 people, because they believe any more than that breaks down in communication. There's too many people to tell everybody, and so 6 to 8 people, they get 90 seconds to put a part on. And so as it creeps along this production line ever so slowly, all these people have a job to do. And if it's a big job like putting in the motor or putting in the differential or something like that, they'll combine their time to do it. And obviously it goes through the production line, and at the end of the day drives off a brand new Toyota Land Cruiser off to the Middle East, off to Australia, UK, wherever it might be. And so as we're walking along this production line, I noticed that somebody goes up to a whiteboard and writes something up in Japanese. And I saw this about half a dozen times in 45 minutes, and curiosity killed the cat. And I said to our guide that was with us that day, a guy called Kenji-san, I said, Kenji-san, what's that guy doing writing up on the whiteboard there? Oh, by the way, I thought it was their lunch order. Apparently not. So they put the write something up in Japanese, and I said, what's he doing? He said, Kaizen, Keith. Now, one of Toyota's guiding principles is continuous improvement, Kaizen. And so I said, oh, wow, that's impressive. I say, Kenji, I've seen this about half a dozen times in 45 minutes. How many ideas do you get in the course of a year? And he said, we get over 900,000 ideas from 60,000 employees worldwide. If you do the math on that, it's just over one a month, about 15 a year. And of course, I'm an Australian. I can be sceptical, believe it or not, Matt and Jack. And I said, Kenji, good ideas and good intentions are worth 2/5 of bugger all, mate. How many of them actually get implemented? Now, after he had that translated, he said to me, no, Keith-san, you don't understand. He said, you cannot give an idea unless it can be implemented. I said, well, that's impressive, but how many of them get implemented? And he said 97% of them. I said, how is it possible that you implement almost 800,000 ideas in the course of a year? And he said because they're 1%ers. They're little things. They're little things that make a difference. They're little things that, when added to something else, have a compounding impact. And to give you an example, one of the ladies at the Altona factory in Melbourne, where they make Toyota Camrys for most of did make Toyota Camrys for most of the Middle East, she came up with an idea and said, why don't we turn the lights off in that factory over there? And everyone said, well, why would we want to turn the lights off in that factory? And she said, simple, that's where all the welding robots are. They don't need lights. And to add one more incentive to this is that whatever saving is made in the first month goes in their pay packet. That lady, the power saving in the first month for that lady was 16,500 Aussie dollars.
What? No way.
Yeah.
That's incredible, isn't it? And I love that culture of, because I think one of the challenges that I was kind of thinking about, right, is it's all very well asking for an idea, but to your point, like, you can't ask for the idea if you're not going to pull the trigger and execute on it. Then people feel as though their ideas have fallen on deaf ears, and what's the point of putting in? And you've lost your audience, and the engagement in it kind of goes down. So the fact that they can implement 97%, I think is staggering. And again, I think maybe we get kind of too fixated on the big punchy transformational ideas.
100%.
Like, look, if we just had those little incremental bits just to streamline that process, just to make that onboarding experience a bit better, just to that document could just be a little bit shorter, that question doesn't need to be there, then actually the sum of the parts is it's phenomenal, right? And that then in itself is that big transformation piece. It's just spread thinly across all of the minds that we've got in the business.
Well, here's the great part about this, Matt, is that So if they're 1% ideas, let me tell you, they're no cost or low cost to implement. You don't need a committee. You don't need to have a focus group. We don't need to take it to the CEO of the whole organisation. You know, they go, let's give this a try. Let's do, oh, that works, you know. And of course, once again, come back to that Namawashi process is that often that idea will stimulate another idea in somebody else. And of course, you get this perpetual motion of things being implemented on a continuous basis. As you said before, you know, my ideas are being heard. I'm being listened to. I'm valued. And, you know, people will go the extra mile when they feel like they're valued. And so it's so important that, you know, you create, you know, you don't have to be Toyota to create a culture like that. We've done this with travel agents. We've done this with financial planners. We've done this in banks. You know, we've shared this whole 1% improvement process with small businesses, large corporates. You know, the board of directors. How do they operate 1% better as a board? And you know, you get them to come up with a few ideas there, and all of a sudden, you know, people are thinking, oh, it doesn't. Oh, we don't have to invest $1 million to do this. We don't have to spend £100 to do it, and that's where you get, you know, momentum. And let me tell you, I'll take momentum over motivation any day of the week.
It'd be great to hear from you, Keith, on that other side of the coin of, you know, getting people to collaborate and engage with each other and creating energy. You know, how do you do that? How do you enthuse people in a virtual world where we've got some great advantages of a chat box, but we haven't got that face-to-face interaction anymore? And you know, I presume in all your presentations, you must have seen people getting distracted over here by an email, or you know, switching the camera off for a minute and stuff like that. How do you get everyone, you know, focused?
Yeah, well, the thing that I heard, which I sort of I've been doing, but I heard a wonderful quote. You know, where fingers go, attention flows. And so when you have got people typing things into the chat box, if it's a Y, if it's an N for no, a Y for yes, a quick statement, you know, how you're feeling at the moment, whatever it might be, they're always going to be engaged, because all of a sudden, you know, we're recording this. Most Zoom meetings are recorded, or Teams meetings can be recorded. And so when you've got that type of input, people are going, well, I'm required here. I'm required to turn up. And so and this is also, it comes back to the responsibility of leaders as well, Jack, that people have to, you know, the presenter, whether you're the director of sales or director of marketing or the CFO, the COO, the CEO, you have to be exceptionally planned now. So you just can't turn up and wing it. You have to be planned, just like say, what am I going to do to make sure this meeting is not dull but dynamic? How am I going to engage people in this little bit of real estate I've got here now versus my charisma or my presence? You know, I say this, you know, if you were a crappy presenter before COVID, if you were a poor presenter before COVID, you know, you are absolute shite now. You know, you are just, you know, get me out of here. Like, you know, what can I do? I gotta go. The cat's got diarrhea. I'll be back tomorrow. You know, like, let me get out of here.
And like, surely that gets worse as well, right? If you've got like, because you know now there's three of us. You know, we can have a captive audience, and you know, and obviously, but I where I've seen this really fall down. I don't know if you've got any tips for anyone, but it's where if you're doing an all hands meeting, it is so easy to hide. You know, not everyone has the cameras on. You could be 4 or 5 different pages of gallery view on Zoom, and you don't know, who's paying attention and who's not. Whereas obviously, if you've got them in a conference room and then it's an off-site or whatever, whether they like it or not, I mean, they might have a quick glance down at their phone, but you're there in front of them. So, like, are they really? Do we force them to have their cameras on so we can see and we can watch? Is that a bit too much? Particularly for the introverts. Like, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, I think. you've got to be strategic about this, Matthew. You know, you've got to sort of think this through and you go, okay, is this a meeting where I'm just going to disseminate information and I just want people to hear? And what I found with Zoom or any virtual meeting is if something took me an hour to do in a presentation, it takes me half an hour to do in a virtual one. Because I don't necessarily, and take this the right way, I don't have to necessarily stop and just collaborate, you know, and calibrate people all the time or do an activity or something like that. So I think you've got to be really conscious of how, what's this meeting all about? And then maybe you start to use a breakout session or a secondary meeting where that leader takes, that divisional leader takes their people and they have this conversation. What did you get from the CEO's presentation and what are you taking away from it and what's your implementation strategy, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's things that you can do. The other thing is that we have to become very creative now on how do we engage people. Like could I get people to, sort of, okay, write the one word on how you're feeling. Don't type it in the chat box. Put it on a post-it note and hold it straight up to the camera if you be so kind, And could I do that? Could I get people to do? And so you have to start being ultra prepared and ultra planned in what I need to do to make it. And then the other thing is we have to be very, very conscious of what's the purpose. So think about it like this way. There's 3 P's: purpose, process, payoff. What's the purpose of this virtual meeting? Is it information dissemination? Is it education? Is it engagement? Is it a check? What's the purpose of it? What's the process I'm going to use? Do I use slides? Do I do something? Do I do something like this where I'm still on screen and I'm presenting here, and have I set myself up that I can sort of walk a little bit towards the camera, or if I have to really get in people's face, what do I need to do to be, making sure that I'm engaging with people, and every now I know you got so lockdown's been a big part of it, but with a little bit of planning, £100 of investment, you can get a couple of decent lights. You could, use the TV in the lounge room, plug your computer into it, and you could just create a little bit more down home, even if you stood up. See, here's what I can tell you, and this is the real critical factor. If you have no energy, so ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this at home, please take this note. If you have no energy, you have no audience. And so this is why you have to become a little bit more amplified and engaging in how you present as part of that process. So, that's the piece. You just have to be really conscious. See, I think what's happened is Zoom, two things here. Zoom's been used for everything. And so, but everyone's using Zoom exactly the same way. And it doesn't matter whether it's an all teams meeting, whether it's whether it's an exec team meeting, it's just the same thing. And you have to, it'll be like turning up to the same training room. That's why they go to conferences and you got smoke machines over here and stuff over there, because it's about giving it a different impact.
Standing
Does that
out,
answer
right?
that question?
Yeah, it really does. Like, I found it fascinating to listen to, and I like the way that we can kind of almost break it down to those 3 Ps, and and then deciding, depending on what the purpose is for the meeting, then deciding what process are you going to use, and that kind of dictates
and
how
the
you
payoff
approach
is, and the payoff here is what's the payoff to the person on the other side of the computer screen, the other side of this lens? What's the payoff to that person? How do I want them to feel, think, act? What do I want them to do? And more importantly, what's the payoff to me? What's the payoff for me, either personally or as an organisation? What's my payoff? And so often people are just not doing that. You know what they're doing? Oh, okay, I whacked a few slides together as the Zoom, now where's that share button again? I know it's down here. Hey Larry, where's the share button on this Zoom thing? Where is it? I can't see it.
Yeah.
what I find,
I mean,
what I find hilarious, Keith, is the fact that we've gone from this world where we had a lot of ways of communicating to each other. We go for a quick coffee, or where I've been face to face with you. You'll be presenting to people, and then afterwards you'll have a little chat on the side, and then you have a chat over coffee. You go for a walk with someone, you have a phone call, you have a formal sit down meeting across the table. Sometimes you'll have one next to the fridge. But we've just gone to Zoom and email now.
Yeah.
I don't have phone calls with people anymore. And
No, well, see, everyone just goes, let me just get on a Zoom call with you, and so I think what the thing there, Jack, is you've got to break it up. You just can't eat vanilla ice cream for the rest of your life. You've got to have other flavours,
I could.
And so, yeah, well, let's not
I think
go
that's
into
ice
that,
cream,
Jack.
though.
Yeah, but this is the thing, is that you go, what I'm really conscious of now is that if this is the world we're in for a while, if this is my world for, I said to somebody recently, I'll travel. If the borders was open, I was going to, later this month, I was going to New South Wales or Sydney to present at a conference. I had a client of mine, BMW, who wanted me to do something just with their exec team. And so, I was happy to jump on a plane. But here's my thing. I won't jump on a plane now to go and probably speak overseas for probably 2 years. I doubt very much whether I'll jump on a plane. I might jump on maybe a few flights around Australia, and with a bit of luck, we'll have a travel bubble that'll open up with New Zealand. And that will be about it. So if this is my world, and if our clients are now saying, don't worry about coming to my office, because, and I had a client say this to me, he said, you can't come to our office unless you've had a flu shot. You can't come to your office, I think, in the future unless you've had the vaccine. And so you all of a sudden go, if this is my world, then why don't I become masterful at it? Why wouldn't I do a degree in virtual? Now, there isn't such a thing, but I did 40 hours of research on YouTube, around Zoom, virtual setups, studios, what can I do to have the biggest impact? 40 hours, that's not much, that's a week. And all of a sudden you become a better than the majority of people. And in some cases you become outstanding. And that can be your point of difference in your career. That can be your point of difference in when you pitch, present, persuade a prospect. That can be your point of difference in how you engage, enthuse, and energize people in your team. That might be. But why wouldn't you become masterful at it? And to become the master, you have to let go of the past. And as Bruce Lee would say, be like water. Be fluid enough to change and adapt and modify and not get stuck. I've still got speaker colleagues of mine who are contacting me and say, well, what webcam? Mate, if you haven't already got a webcam, you are dead. Go and get an Uber license. Seriously, you're gone. Don't even think about coming back in this industry. I'm going to eat your lunch and steal your pocket money all at the same time. But it's the truth, isn't it? You guys have got good setups, you've got microphones and all that sort of stuff, you've got virtual backgrounds and you've got good lighting. A little bit, and this is one of what I call the 8 not negotiables of doing virtual exceptionally well, is that you have to invest a little bit in getting those basics right. If people can't see you, they don't trust you. If people can't hear you properly, they won't connect with you.
Keith, it'd be great to just explore that in a little bit more detail. So, obviously, make sure you get a webcam. What are your other tips on getting your virtual setup good?
So before I jump in, let me give you 3 things that people need to be really conscious of. Am I memorable for all the right reasons? Is what I share with people repeatable? So if I share a message, has it got so much of an impact that people can take that soundbite and share it with Mary as they pass them in the hall, their team back in Manchester, whatever it might be. So can I do that? So memorable, repeatable, referable. Oh, listen, you got to get Matthew. He's got to present our team. He was so dynamic. Wow, we love him. You know, we just think he's wonderful. You know, so you're referable. People are saying, well, we've got to use this person. You know, wow, Jack was, you know, his presentation was head and shoulders above all the competitors. And, you know, like if they're doing that well at virtual, geez, they must be really good at all the other things they do. So there's just that impact and that point of difference. So here's three things. If you want you want things to be memorable for all the right reasons, Jack. If you want to be memorable for all the right reasons, sound, vision, lights. So, I mean, my studio's Hollywood. You know, I got lights, but I got cables everywhere. What you see is, you know, well, let's do. Should we do a quick little tour?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yes, please.
Radio. So, I have 3 cameras, 4 feeds, and so this is camera number 1. I always start here. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's great having the opportunity to present with you. So I always start here. Then I flick over here, and we go through some slides with people. And people will often say, well, why do you not just share your slides? This is not ego. I want the attention on me, and you might want to write this down, is that PowerPoint is the method, it's not the message. And so when I can gain, if I become the little postage stamp up in the corner here, I lose the opportunity to have impact, and hence, you know, to be able to, you know, go through some slides here and talk is a lot more powerful. And so if there is like a massive amount of detail on a slide, then I've got the ability to make it full screen. I don't have to muck around and sort of go, you know, what, you know, like, hold on, Tick, where's the share button? Or let me unshare now. No, let me share. What am I doing?
Can you see that? Can you see it in presentation mode?
Yeah, can you see my slides? Everyone see my slides? Okay. I mean, you know, like, seriously. And then, so that's 2 cameras and 1 feed. And then, of course, my other feed is this. The ability to come over here and, you asked me a question before and I went, right, okay. So I could sort of say, you know, how do you engage people? And you sort of go, well, look, if you look at it, every team looks a bit like this. And you guys know this better than anybody else. You got people, and let's say this, you got people who are on board. In every team, you got people on board. Follow you into battle, do what needs to be done. You got people down here that, what's the best way to put them? They are detractors, you know, or what I like to commonly known as prisoners. And, you know, here's the challenge with prisoners. You can leave the gates open, they won't escape. And so what tends to happen, you know, Larry, can you go and seek excellence elsewhere? What do you mean? We'd like you to leave. Oh, I like it here. No, you don't get it. We want you to go, you know. And so here's what most leaders do. They try and get these people to become on board. And what my suggestion is always to people is this, is your goal as a leader is to not try and get these people on board. You want to influence the middle ground, because guess what, fellas? This middle ground, these are the people who are waiting to see who wins. And what your goal as a leader is to influence down here. Because then what will happen with our detractors is really simple. They'll either get on board or they will get lost. And isn't that just a beautiful thing? And your culture becomes self-cleansing. So I can do stuff like that. So I should have picked it easy. I should have picked a quicker example.
That was good.
But yeah. So,
Yeah, it had my attention.
Yeah.
But so the ability for somebody to ask me a question and for me to be able to do that. Light's really important. So I've got a light here. I've got a light here. I've got a light over here over where my the where this is, which bounces off the roof and then back down. So hence it's pretty, it's pretty clear and crisp and all that sort of stuff. I've got a light here for this camera. It just gives me nice light on here. I've got a light that lights up the backboard, my banner.
Got a light under the TV there as well?
Yeah, good spotting, Jack. Got a light under the TV here. I've got this little funky light. I can change the colour of it, and but the pink sort of matches one of my daughter's paintings here, and so it also blends in pretty well. Light behind me here. So most of it, like anything, is most of it's all out of sight. You don't see it in a frame at all, and it's just nice and professional. And it gives me this ability. This is my second version, by the way, of the studio. The other one was a bit tight, and it was like something that I kept on adding things to, and then I got a real professional in just to come and critique it, and of course the other thing which is ultra cool is in front of me here. If that's a 55-inch TV, I've got a 65-inch TV in front of me, which is my monitor, where I can have 30 or 40 people on a Zoom, and I can see them all pretty crystal clear, including the chat.
Amazing. And you've got a backdrop behind you.
Yeah, I had a banner produced, yeah, which is Burleigh Beach on the Gold Coast where I grew up.
Beautiful.
It's stunning, doesn't it?
Sorry, as I tell people, this is just out my backyard. I'll have to, honey, close the window. It's getting a little breezy in here.
So, I know, you totally got my attention when you were kind of doing the sketch around this is how the workforce looks, and then we've got the promoters, detractors, passives, yes, or whatever in the middle, and how actually potentially the focus is, we're going to change our detractors rather than the detractors make their own mind up. The focus needs to be elsewhere. That's the first time I've heard that, because we always hear our NPS is down. We've got 30%, 40% detractors within our organization. Our target is to get them to green. We hear get to green strategies and stuff like that. But I've never heard it say, well, actually, let's focus on the passives, because that's where the opportunity, I guess, for them to go either way. And then the detractors kind of look after themselves.
But they're the easiest people to influence. They're the people who are waiting for somebody to win their hearts and minds, and why not you? And so this is the challenge that most people have, is that we look at the squeaky wheel rather than saying, let me go and engage the people who are probably the ones who are a little bit quiet, or the ones who are a little bit that aren't as vocal, and let me, because see, the detractors only have power when they have ears to vent to. If they don't have anyone to talk to, guess what? They're up and out of there.
Right, that's interesting, and true. Because you can see it, right?
I know.
You can always hear that guy in the office.
I'm a very sorry, I know, Matthew. I'm a very simple man. I'm a very simple man. I just go, well, why are we spending time on all the, Clown Town, rather than spending time on the people who I just know I can influence in a positive way, and look, people want to hook their wagon to something. Even the people who are just in turn-up mode, people want to still belong. More than ever now, they want to belong to a cause. And is the cause your company? Is the cause you? And I don't mean causes as like a community thing. I mean a cause as I believe in you. I believe in what we're doing here. I believe in the vision you've created for us. I believe that we have potential to be better, to do better, to be bigger, bolder, braver. I believe in that. And if you can get people to believe in that and a sense of belonging, what can't you achieve?
Have you kind of seen that in practice? Obviously, I mean, you've got hundreds of clients, right, all over the world, and I can imagine this sort of conversation has come up before with some of those clients. And have you kind of seen anyone make that shift in terms of their target engagement, audience, who they're going after, and the impact of them leaving the detractors and focusing more on the passives?
Yeah, like obviously Toyota, Lexus have been exceptional at doing that. I look at Apple as well. I see what they do to get people on board and committed to their environment. I mean, you can't join Apple. You'll never see an ad in the paper with Apple because you have to be referred to them, and whoever gets referred to Apple or in a retail space will automatically get the first interview. Automatically will get the first interview. If you've come from a recommendation of a team member, we'll give you that, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Now there'll be 4 other interviews before you get employed, but you get, so by the time you get the person into the business that they are engaged, that they want to be here, they buy into the culture. Lexus, for example, one of the things that we did with Lexus is we talked a lot early on. So in Australia, Lexus didn't go off that well when it originally started, and the guys are happy for me to share this story. And one of the things that they engaged a guy called John Rocker, and John's a great mate of mine, a great client through the time I spent with him at Lexus. And his charter was to do, this is 17, 18 years ago now, but his charter was to either fix it or close it. That was his charter. There was 11 dealerships in the country, and his charter was to fix it or close it. Maybe it's just a bit like Infinity. Infinity never worked for Mazda. Infinity worked in the US, but it didn't work in Australia. It's come back since then. But so he went, and for 6 weeks he went around and looked at every dealership, and every dealership was, there was people, salespeople wearing short sleeves, seriously wearing short sleeve shirts, and Mickey Mouse ties. I mean, literally Mickey Mouse ties, and trying to sell $160,000, $170,000 luxury car back, 18, 20 years ago. And so he went around and he said, you know what? And all the dealers said to him, we're not making any money. We've invested heavily in these premises. They're all standalone dealerships, and we're not making any money. And his first team meeting, or first dealer meeting, brought everyone together, and he said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We are going to lift the standards, and the standards are going to cost you more money. And we totally get that you don't want to be on this journey, but here's what we do know, that the standard I walk past is the standard I accept. And so when we raise the standards, we'll raise the culture. When we raise the culture, we'll have a far greater impact with how, people will buy our vehicles. And a few people screamed about it, and he said, look, we'll buy the dealership back. And so from that day, they went away and they just changed all their standards. And one of the things they did was we created a process called DNA. And we said that, what's our DNA as a business? And our DNA, and DNA at Lexus stands for DNA, a dynamic way of doing business, not negotiable standards, and an attitude of excellence. And so from that very day, we started recruiting and we started to train people around DNA. And what we found is that we stopped trying to recruit a car salesperson from Ford or from Subaru or from Mazda or Mercedes to come over and join them. They went and found concierge. They went and found maitre d's in restaurants, high-end fashion retail people. Because what they believed is that we can train them how to sell a car, but we can't train them how to have a set of standards that they virtually as part of their DNA every day. And so, you asked me what an example is. So we would bring people into a luxury Four Seasons hotel on a Friday. We would put them up overnight. Now, by the way, this is before we employed them. And for 2 days, we'd talk about excellence, and we'd have the maitre d' talk about attention to detail, and we'd talk to them about, about the attention to detail in this car. The first Lexus cost them $1.2 billion to build.
Right.
They took key executives and based them in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, and in Malibu, and had them sit around country clubs and high-end hotels, looking at what people were wearing, what they appreciated, what they valued, and they said, we don't have the heritage of a Mercedes or a BMW, but we have a car that's just as good, but we have to be able to convince people of its uniqueness and the luxury. And so we taught them all of this. And at the end of the weekend, these 2 days, and an overnight and a great dinner out and everything like that, at the end of that, it was a little bit like, they either loved Lexus and couldn't wait to join us, or they said, too much detail. You guys are too anal, you watch them, this would be too hard to do every day. That's okay, you're not for us. And so this is the way you start to create culture, by setting a set of standards that are so high and that are so deliberate. Same with Apple, all of those companies that are starting to say, you know what, the more value, everyone plays lip service to this whole thing about, people are our most important asset until we start losing money, and then we're going to punt them. And so, this is what you have to, you have to be, be prepared to wear a bit of shareholder, pushback to make sure your business is moving in the right direction. I mean, it's a long answer, Matthew, to a very short question, but hopefully it handles that.
Yeah, it really does. And I think, we end up getting into a lot of these conversations now around, culture and actually now, in the, I don't know, what do you want to call it? The future of work, the remote world, the
normal, the new normal.
Iceberg, the new normal, I mean.
Who moved my cheese normal?
Cliche bingo,
my iceberg
right?
is melting normal.
The iceberg. And, we're kind of wondering, well, you know what? I wonder if culture actually is your friend or enemy at this point, because if you hadn't have already instilled that culture prior to having this, delta or gap now between the employer and the employee, because everyone's now gone remote, and you are now, as you said earlier, if you weren't very good at presenting before and energizing and infusing and getting that engagement, you're buggered now, because you don't, all those tools that you thought you had, now they're gone, and it's just you. And if you were crap before, you're even worse now. So, I think some companies are now finding that our culture's, really in a bad place, but we didn't realize it because we were banging the drum, preaching a good message, and almost kind of being a bit blind to the actual reality of whether or not people were listening and engaging with it, because we were just too busy, driving the message home without it actually ever landing, right?
Oh, look, I just think that here's what I believe is the virtual world has accelerated and amplified everything. It has amplified where people are deficient, as in organisations are deficient. It has amplified the gaps in our culture, in our activity. I tell you what it has amplified, believe it or not, when COVID first hit, the amount of articles that were online on LinkedIn about, how to be productive in a virtual world, all those articles are obsolete because everyone is ultra productive. Now, if old Larry is still at home watching Netflix, so he turns up for his meeting and he's still got his fuzzy slippers on, like Jack's got on today, and he still does that. Sooner or later, you'll see that they don't get the results, and they weren't. Geez, we never miss Larry. I mean, he just didn't have an impact. So that's going to amplify that. And what I mean by accelerate is that everything is quicker online. Everything is. I can virtually get a meeting with any CEO within my client base now, which would normally take maybe 6 months to get on their schedule. I can get on their schedule in 2 to 3 weeks because everyone's got half an hour.
What's your view on using time as well? So, I've always been a big fan of, if the meeting doesn't take half an hour, if it's a 5-minute meeting, it's a 5-minute meeting. And you and I have had a few of those, probably because we're sick of each other. But
Are you giving the wind up now? Are you, Jack? Is this like the subliminal message? Wow! Just look, if you want me to get off, just tell me. I can take it.
Jack's got some tips for you, Keith.
Yeah, that's right. You can always get off a meeting by just going. Yeah, that's right. One of the things I'd say there, Jack, is you're right. Is that people now are going, I don't need half an hour. I can do it in 5 minutes. I can do it in 10 minutes, whatever it might be. But come back to your point before, Jack. I'm using. I've always used the phone. I'm probably a little old-fashioned. I still use pen and paper. I'm a dinosaur. I use a fountain pen. Man. He's got. How antiquated is he? A quill, even. No.
I was going to go there, but I didn't.
A quill and a carrier pigeon. I hope you know.
And a wax stamp.
That's right. What's wrong with that? So I just think that we've got to become a little bit more conscious of breaking it up a little bit. So is it, could it be a virtual? Could I just, let's do 15 minutes? Because in essence, 15 minutes is 30 minutes in the real world type of thing. And I know that it just sounds like it doesn't add up, but I just find that I can get through so much content in an hour with somebody now. Presenting, I can get through. I can do a sales meeting or what I call a suitability call. See if they're the right fit for me. I'm the right fit for them. I can do that in 20 minutes. I can get through a discovery call in. I did a briefing session yesterday morning early to a New Zealand client of mine, to the exec team, and that would have been normally about an hour and 15 minutes. It was 30 minutes flat, and so. But the final piece here is break it up a little bit. Send text messages to people. Make phone calls to people. And dare I even say it, pops things in the mail. I know the Royal Mail might be a little slow, but it's one of those things. And here's the reason why. A, they're not expecting it. B, nobody's done it before. And so all of a sudden it creates a point of difference. And this is where people need to understand that we have to still use face-to-face, ear-to-ear, mailbox to mailbox, screen to screen. We have to use everything that's available. How many people are actually writing handwritten notes down? You think, oh, Keith, come on, get with the times. How many people then are actually doing a quick little video? Hi, John, great to what's saying, great to see you on the Zoom call today. Just wanted to check in with you and just say, hey, listen, really happy that you're part of my team. Anyway, buddy, anything I can do for you, talk to you real soon. Boom.
Love it.
Jack, you joined a program that I've been running at Mercer, and I did 60 personalised videos to people. It took me, they were about 90 seconds each, so it took me a chunk of time. But I did it, and not to let the secret out of the back, I did it because I wanted to build trust, rapport and credibility before I even got in front of you.
I love that. It's such an incredibly personal touch. And again, it's almost like, if you're being unexpected, it really just fully captivates their attention, doesn't it? And the other day, one of the guys in my team FaceTimed me. I freaked out. Yeah. I was like, oh, he's butt dialed me. Like, why is it? And I just kind of stared at it, waiting for it to stop, but it didn't stop. And I was like, maybe he's FaceTiming me. Yeah. And I was like, hello? And he's like, hey, mate, how's it going? I was like, oh, yeah, no, good. And then we ended up having a chat on the FaceTime. But it's funny, I remembered it because I was like, that was quite odd. And he was like, yeah, I just got bored of Zoom, just thought we'd FaceTime instead. I was like, yeah, fair point. And it works.
Yeah. But see, we just have to be, you got to be deliberate. You just have to, attention to detail and being deliberate. What's going to have the biggest impact, and to take the time and put the energy in to just planning that out a little bit. So, and that's, we come back to culture again. One of the things that we need to really make sure that we're going, okay, let me be deliberate about what I do. Let me map out my calendar. If I'm a leader, let me map out my calendar from December through to December of what's my contact strategy for our most important clients, which is the person inside my business.
Love it. And do you know what? I'm going to put you on the spot, Keith, which I'm sure you don't mind. And it's, it's not your first rodeo.
No, true.
But so I think one of the biggest challenges, and I've seen it within, a lot of conversations that I'm having, leaders are kind of saying, look, guys, if you can think of anything, that would be good, for us to get together, or, when we could, or, for us to engage, like if anyone's got any ideas, because clearly they're out of them, or, they've kind of exhausted, whatever is kind of within their locker for, coming up with these kind of ideas. So like, are you able to just give us some tips? Like if you were a manager and you're managing a team of 10, 12, 20 people, whatever it is, like, what are the top 3, top 5, depending on how many you've got in your locker? What would you do? Okay, do personal videos. 1, send things in the post. 2, build a communication strategy. Like, what does that actually look like as a manager in the team?
Well, firstly, get the calendar out. And so why don't I go back to the flip chart here? Can I do that? Can we sort of do that, and then I can think on the hop? Is that all right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I know that you guys, look, and I am using a bit of antiquated technology here, but let me firstly get rid of, I'd send everybody one of these. That's what I'd do right up front.
Well, I know you joke, Keith, but you do that in some of your workshops. So
I do. Yeah, Jack, you're 100% right. I have sent books to people as part of that process. So coming back over to this camera here, and so here's what you do. If you map this out, firstly you've got to start to think a little. Oh, I've gone way too high there, but you'll get my idea here. So if you map things out and you go, okay, here are the. This is looking like a calendar. Here are my 4 quarters. And you sort of go, okay, what could I do? And all of the things that you just said then before, Matthew, 100% right. So I'd do a video. If it's only 10 or 15 or 20 people and there's 60 seconds, I'd do a quick little video. Hey, just wanted to wish you and your family, all the best for the Christmas break. So let's say this is December. And then you go January. You know what I do in January? I'd send everybody a New Year's card. Why not a Christmas card, Keith? Because everybody gets that stuff. And I want to be different. I want to be unique. I want to be special. Then in February, I might bring in a guest speaker. I might say, who in the organisation could I ask to come in and present and do something like that? There's heaps of unemployable speakers out there at the moment that you can get for a good price. Not me, of course. I'm bloody expensive. And I'm busy.
So you make sure you say you're not unemployable.
No. There's a whole stack of speakers that are chronically unemployable at the moment, but that's another story. So you could do a video, you could do a New Year's, you could do one of the things you could do is you could sort of go, okay, let me now do an email out of success stories. And you could do that either personally or professionally. Let's talk about Mary's, little Johnny, and he got selected in the cricket team, and first time he played, and he got 20 not out. Good on you, Johnny. Fantastic. Well done. You'll be playing at Lord's before you know it. And it just now. See, one of the things I want to say here is that everything I'm saying is, I'm making it a little flippant about it, but understand this: authenticity is the new currency of credibility. And so, the more I connect with you as a person, and not as my leader, the more I connect with you as a person and not a product provider or as a customer, the more I connect with you, the less I communicate with you. And if I can connect with you, then I can take you on a journey with me. And so I'd be doing something like that. The other thing I'd be doing as well is I'd be taking some time out to say in April, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we do a 1% ideas? Hey everybody, I expect 1% idea from. Just tell us one thing we can do to improve how we do this, and just get the engagement and give a little prize or whatever it might be. The other thing you could probably do, in May. See, so all of a sudden you just got to start to think about, what could I do? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get my boss to talk to people. I'm going to get my boss to come in and say, come in and tell us the vision for the business. Because sometimes, here's what I can say to you, is the reason why people engage me is I'm a prophet from another land. Not because I'm from Australia, it's because I'll say exactly what the leadership team is saying, and it's just in a different way, in a different format. And people, that's the frustrating thing sometimes is, geez, Keith, you've told our team exactly what we've been telling them, and they walk out and they go, this is fantastic, it's the best thing we've ever had, wow, he's so amazing. And it's like, it's so bloody frustrating, Keith, but that's the prophet in another land process, True, isn't it? And so you just start to keep on mapping things out here. You just keep on going, what else could we do to energise enthusiasm? You know what I could do is in June, I could do. Let me ask someone else to lead the meeting.
Subtle but effective tip, isn't it?
Yeah. Here's another thing. Let me get a customer to come in and tell us what they love about us or hate about us. Let me do that. Let me do a. Let me.
Something in the post.
Sorry, what's that?
Something in the post.
Yeah, well, I'm a great believer in. I love books, so I sent Jack a book, and he still hasn't coloured it in, but it was okay.
He did connect the dots though.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, but it didn't. But it didn't make up the picture that was supposed to. So
it's meant to be a lion.
But it is keeping my dining room table flat. I can tell you that.
That's yeah. It's honey, when are you going to do something with that book? Well, when it jumps out and opens itself up, really. So, Jack's one of these people. Jack's one of these people. Sometimes, when I first met Jack, and I said, you know what, Jack, leaders are readers. And Jack said, oh, yeah, Keith, but I'm not a very good reader. I said, listen, Jack, you're probably not very good at sex either. It doesn't stop you having a go. However,
I'm not going to say anything.
But, however, I did talk to his partner, and she actually told me the whole story. He's a speed reader at home. So, sorry. I've overstepped the mark. My apologies. Put it down to that I'm an Australian, and I know Jack really well, so my apologies for being so crass to people.
Best podcast ever. I'm loving it.
So, book in the mail. You could then start to sort of go, well, you know what? If we're doing September, I might do a little. I didn't do enough squares. So in September, I might go, okay, well, let's look at maybe a note. Maybe October, let's look at October. Let's do an all hands review. Let's do. Here's something new. Why don't we do a goal setting session with people?
Yeah.
Why don't we get people to share with us what's been their greatest learning experience? And if I've got 10 people, I just want 5 minutes from each of them. there's wisdom in businesses that we just need to tap into. So, you get the idea around that. That if you brainstormed it a little bit, you'd probably come up with some great ideas.
Yeah,
I mean, all those ideas are hopeless, but you guys would come up with better ideas.
Of course, I think some of the principles there are actually, quite high level strategically. Communicate often, do it in different ways. Keep it topical and seasonal. Like, there's no point in sending a New Year's card in August. I mean, you might get people's attention, but it's going to look a bit weird. But you're having lots of different touch points for people there in lots of different ways, and you're making it feel like you've put care and attention into it for that person or that group.
Yeah, 100%. Here's what most people do, Jack. Here's what most people. Okay, December. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a webinar.
Yeah.
January, we're going to do something different. We're going to do a kickstart webinar. Then in February, we're actually going to get a guest speaker, and we're going to do a webinar. Then in March, March, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to do, now what's something different? Oh, you know what we'll do? We'll do a webcast. April, no, we're going to do a virtual presentation.
Yeah. May we'll do a live Zoom.
Yeah, we'll do a live Zoom. Not pre-recorded, Jack. We'll do a live Zoom. And so it's what happens is people go, oh, so much innovation.
Do you know what when you're talking about the post and using that, almost kind of, I think people have almost forgotten that as a channel now because everyone's gone Zoom. So that's where the spotlight is. That's where we need to go.
Yeah.
And like my wife works in HR, and one of the best things that I saw her do recently was everyone in the company got a letter completely out of the blue on a Friday, saying, look, we just wanted to say we really appreciate your hard work. We know these are difficult times. Like, here's a branded face mask, some branded like antibac gel, a little bag of sweets, and a Just Eat voucher for a takeaway for you and the family tonight.
Right.
And it was completely out of the blue. And that's what, if they were like, guys, we're sending you something in the post, we're going to get these things out to you, it almost kind of loses the impact, doesn't it? But to
it's like,
I guess what I'm getting to is the proactivity, isn't it? Like, be proactive
absolutely.
with it. Don't just react.
We've had marketing work on this for a while now, and we've put a lot of thought and care into it, and we're going out and sending everybody an actual branded coffee mug. You're welcome. Yeah. And
you can take us later.
I want to share two examples. Accountants aren't. Now, I have clients who are accountants, so I'm not carving them up, but they're not the most creative people. But there's one accountant looks after a whole lot of high-end clients, and he said, I would like to give you an economic update of the impact of COVID, and I need an hour and a half of your time. We're going to do it on a Friday, and it's going to be from 12 to 1:30. And of course, people had time and everything like that. And so then his executive assistant contacted every person and said, what's your favourite food? And what's your favourite takeaway? And what's the wine you love to drink? And so he organised Deliveroo or Uber Eats to go and pick up the takeaway and a bottle of wine and drop it at their house at 12 o'clock. And everybody, 10 people on that call, had lunch together.
Love it.
So simple.
There's no reason why you couldn't do that with a team, right?
Here's the second one. The second one was the team wanted to get everybody together in this team and just appreciated that it was in lockdown. People were homeschooling, all that sort of stuff. And so here's what they did. We set up a second Zoom channel, and we've organised a couple of daycare. We've organised a couple of kindergarten teachers to come in and run a Zoom session for your kids and do activities with them while you're on this other Zoom call over here. Mindset's everything at the moment. I mentioned before that, and I made a joke about some of my colleagues who are still waiting to get back on stages, and it's because their mindset is not one that says, you know what, there's oceans of opportunities at the moment if you have got the right mindset. And so if I could share one message to everybody listening to this, is that if you do nothing else at the moment, you ought to pick your lane. You need to pick your mindset. You need to go there. I believe there's what I call 6 amplified attitudes. And what I say, when COVID first hit, I contacted 300 clients. I made 300 phone calls, 100 phone calls a week, 20 a day, which is no big deal. And just to reach out to people and just check in and say, are you okay? Anything I can do for you? I don't have anything to sell you. It's not a sales call. It's just tell me what I can do to help you. And the message I kept on getting back from lots of clients is, oh, Keith, we've just got to get through this period of this chaos and we have to, this crisis, we have to just get through it. And the one message that kept on coming up in the back of my mind is, I'm thinking, geez, this is not a time to get through anything. This is a time to grow through. This is a time to grow through this challenge, this chaos at the moment, this area of uncertainty. This is a time to grow ourselves personally and professionally. This is a time to grow our relationships with our clients, with our colleagues, with our community. This is a time to grow. And to do that, you have to have what I call an amplified attitude. And people say, oh, I've just got to be positive, Keith. Well, what the hell does that mean, really? You just got to be positive? What does that really articulate? And so what I say to people is, you've got to pick a lane that you want to go in.
And then, Keith, the final thing we like to just finish on is, how can, if people want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Yeah. Really simple. You can go to keithabraham.com. You could do that. In actual fact, let me make this really, really simple for people. So you can go to keithabraham.com and you can do a couple of things there. There's a couple of things you can do. You can go there, but if people want to get in contact with me, they go there, send me an email, and ask me any question. Happy to help. Let me make one other, if this is, I didn't check this out with you guys, but anyway, I'm going to do it anyway. If people would like the audio copy of this book, which is called Focus, and I did it as an audio book as well as a hard copy. I'm not going to send you a hard copy. You wouldn't get it until probably 2022, the way the mail is these days, from Australia anyway. But if you'd like the audio copy of this, here's what I'd encourage you to do. Go to this website, keithabraham.com/here to help. Here to help, and you can get a free copy of that. In actual fact, it's not free. I'm going to be charging Matthew and Jack for every copy that has been downloaded. So eat them up, folks. Eat them up. Share them with your friends.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah.
No,
we'll put a link to that in the description.
That's my gift. Well. So if people want to contact me, I suppose the third thing, if you think that I'm the right fit for your organisation, let's start a conversation. Let's set up a Zoom call and let's see if there's a suitability. Let's see if there's a fit, and if there is a fit, I'll say there's a fit, and if there's not, I'll refer you and recommend you to talk to someone else. So those 3 things would be super, mate.
Awesome.
Keith, happy to be involved. You're doing some great work, Jack and Matt. Just I love that you're prepared to give back. This is not your day job. You actually work for a living, and but you've got a full heart for people. You've got a full heart for the fully committed. So I love what you're doing here with this podcast.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Keith, for coming on the show, Keith, and obviously thanks for bringing the energy. It's been great. Yeah, excellent. No worries at all. Happy to help. So all the very, very best. And if you want a part 2, we'll do a part 2 in 2021. I might have some decent content by then.